The Tonight Show interview was supposed to celebrate Amanda Gorman's latest poetry collection and her continued rise as America's youngest inaugural poet. She'd prepared to discuss her new work and the power of poetry in modern society with her characteristic eloquence. But when Jimmy asked about her journey to finding her voice, something vulnerable flickered across her usually confident expression. Amanda sat in the blue chair, her hands gesturing expressively as they always did when she spoke. She'd become known for her powerful delivery and commanding presence, inspiring millions with her words. Tonight, she was about to reveal the painful truth behind that carefully cultivated voice. "You know, Jimmy," she began, her voice carrying that familiar rhythm that had captivated the world. "Everyone talks about finding your voice as a poet, but no one mentions what it's like when you literally can't find your voice because you can't speak properly." Jimmy leaned forward, immediately intrigued by this unexpected revelation from someone known for her articulate speech. His experience had taught him to recognize when a guest was about to share something deeply personal. "What do you mean you couldn't speak properly?" he asked gently. Amanda took a deep breath, looking down at her hands before meeting his eyes. "I had a speech impediment until I was 15 years old," she said simply. "I couldn't pronounce R sounds, among other things. In elementary school, I was basically mute." The studio audience grew quiet, sensing they were about to hear something profound from the young woman who had commanded the world's attention with her inaugural poem. The cameras stayed focused on her face as she gathered the courage to continue. "Teachers told my mother I'd probably never be able to speak publicly, let alone become a poet." This was in elementary school in Los Angeles. Amanda continued, her voice growing steadier with the telling. "I was already dealing with being one of the few black kids in my class, and then I had this speech impediment that made me even more different." Jimmy's expression showed deep compassion as he listened. "How did the other children treat you?" he asked softly. "They didn't treat me at all," she replied, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I was invisible. When you can't speak clearly, people assume you have nothing important to say. I'd raise my hand in class, and teachers would look right through me." She paused, the weight of those childhood memories clearly affecting her. "I remember being in second grade, trying to read aloud, and the other kids started laughing when I couldn't say read or write or remember. The teacher told me to sit down and let someone else try. That's when I started writing instead of speaking," Amanda continued, her voice growing quieter. "If I couldn't say the words correctly, maybe I could write them perfectly. Poetry became my secret language." The camera caught the pain in her expression as she relived those early struggles. "I would write these elaborate poems at home and never share them with anyone. They were my way of having the conversations I couldn't have out loud." Jimmy moved from behind his desk to sit closer to her, understanding the magnitude of what she was sharing. "How did your family support you through this?" he asked gently. "My mother was incredible," Amanda said, her voice filling with gratitude. "She never treated my speech impediment like a limitation. She'd sit with me for hours, helping me practice sounds, reading poetry out loud together. She'd say, 'Amanda, your voice matters, even if it sounds different right now,'" she continued through tears. "She signed me up for speech therapy, but she also filled our house with books and poetry. She knew I needed both healing and inspiration." The studio was completely silent, except for the soft sounds of people in the audience getting emotional. "When did things start to change?" Jimmy asked. "Around age 12, I discovered Maya Angelou," Amanda replied, wiping her eyes. "I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and realized that someone who looked like me had found her voice after being silenced. That gave me hope. I started practicing by reading her poems out loud in my room," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "I'd read the same poems over and over, forcing my mouth to make the sounds correctly, using poetry as speech therapy."
Jimmy reached over and squeezed her hand. "Was there a moment when you realized your voice was getting stronger?" he asked.
"Freshman year of high school," Amanda said with a small smile through her tears. "I auditioned for the speech and debate team. The same mouth that couldn't say read was suddenly arguing about social justice and civil rights. The coach said I had a gift for rhythm and cadence," she continued. "What I thought was a broken way of speaking was actually a poetic way of thinking. My speech impediment had taught me to choose words carefully, to feel their weight and sound. Poetry saved my voice in every sense," she added, looking directly at Jimmy. "It gave me something to say when I couldn't say anything, and it taught me how to say it when I finally could." Jimmy turned to address the camera. What Amanda is sharing is incredibly powerful. The idea that what we see as our greatest weakness might actually be our greatest strength. "The thing is," Amanda added, finding her voice as someone who'd overcome the impossible. I used to think my speech impediment was this terrible thing holding me back. But it actually made me a better poet. She looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this and you're struggling with a speech impediment or any challenge that makes you feel different, please know that different doesn't mean less than. Sometimes different means destined for something extraordinary. And to the teachers and parents out there, she continued with fierce determination, please don't give up on children who communicate differently. Some of us just need more time to find our voices, and when we do, we might change the world. Jimmy wiped his own eyes, clearly moved by her story. How does it feel now, knowing that your voice has inspired millions? He asked. Surreal, Amanda admitted honestly. The little girl who couldn't say remember grew up to write words that millions of people remember. The student who was told she'd never speak publicly spoke at a presidential inauguration. Every time I step up to a microphone, I think about that scared kid in elementary school who thought she'd never have a voice, she continued. I speak for her now and for all the children who are still finding their voices. Jimmy stood up and helped Amanda to her feet. Amanda Gorman, everyone, he announced. Living proof that our greatest obstacles can become our greatest gifts. The audience rose in thunderous applause that lasted nearly 3 minutes. This wasn't just appreciation for her poetry. This was recognition of triumph over adversity, a voice reclaimed from silence. As the show ended, Jimmy kept his arm around Amanda's shoulders. Thank you for sharing something so personal, he whispered. You just gave hope to every child who's been told they don't have a voice. 3 months later, Amanda partnered with speech therapy organizations to create poetry-based therapy programs for children with communication disorders. Her initiative helped hundreds of kids find confidence through creative expression. The interview segment went viral across educational platforms, with speech therapists and teachers sharing it as inspiration for students facing similar challenges. Poetry therapy programs began incorporating Amanda's methods nationwide. Amanda received thousands of messages from children and adults with speech impediments who said her story gave them courage to keep working on their voices. Several young poets credited her honesty with inspiring them to share their own work publicly. Her former speech therapists and teachers publicly celebrated her success, with many acknowledging they'd underestimated her potential. The elementary school where she'd once been silenced now features her poetry prominently. Jimmy continued featuring speech therapy advocates and communication experts on his show, using Amanda's story to highlight the importance of supporting children with learning differences. Today, Amanda includes speech therapy advocacy in her social justice work, speaking at conferences about the intersection of communication disorders and educational equity. The voice that was once told it would never be heard clearly became one of the most powerful voices of her generation. Sometimes our greatest struggles become the foundation for our greatest gifts. Her elementary school classroom, where she once sat silently while others read aloud, now displays a quote from her inaugural poem, "We are striving to forge our union with purpose." The little girl who couldn't speak found words that united a nation. The speech impediment that once silenced her became the very thing that taught her the power and precision of language. Because sometimes what breaks our voice is exactly what teaches us to use it wisely.